Namaskar. Welcome back to the next session of CTET exam language paper 1 and paper 2. मैं हूं अनामिका सिंह. आई एम अ सीनियर रिसर्च स्कॉलर फ्रॉम रीजनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एजुकेशन मैसूरू. आज के सेशन में हम एक और स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक डिस्कस करेंगे. उसके बाद उसके ऊपर कुछ सवाल आंसर करेंगे जो कि हमारे पुराने सीटेट के क्वेश्चन पेपर्स में आए हैं. द टॉपिक फॉर टुडे इज लैंग्वेज स्किल्स. सो we know that there are various language skills. All the LSRW skills are comprising together the language skills that we talk about. It is very important for our learners to have a strong LSRW skills so that they are able to communicate better in their everyday life and also when it comes to their academic discussions. Coming to the very first skills, that is the listening skill. Listening skill in the oral mode is considered as one of the receptive skills. Listening comprehension is the receptive skills in the oral mode. This is something that is very important for us to remember. There are various learning situations in which the learning of the listening language can happen and the use of the listening language will also happen. To begin with, we need to understand that listening is one of the first processes that we begin so that we can learn language. The acquisition of language begins from listening. We hear various sounds, various words, various kind of vocabularies and various languages. Through this is how we start learning a particular language. Thus, listening becomes a very important skill. Coming to listening situations that we were talking about, there are two kinds of listening situations. One is interactive listening. So what happens in this particular listening situation is that you have face-to-face conversation or you have the telephonic conversation. This particular situation involves you to go back and forth in listening as well as speaking. It becomes very important for us to listen carefully to the speaker so that we can ask any clarifications or ask for repetition, or we can also ask them to reduce the speed at which they are speaking. Because there is an interaction involved, it can be a face-to-face interaction, it can be through other means of communication. There are various examples as to where this listening situations can be seen. It will include folklore or storytelling or a community that is talking together, going to a theater art performance wherein the audience is also involved. Another situation where we talk about listening skill is non-interactive listening. This becomes a one-way communication where you are just receiving the information, you are just listening to the information and trying to comprehend it better. So when it comes to the overall skill of listening, it comprises of micro skills so that we can enhance and understand the message that we are receiving, thereby improving our listening skills. So what are these micro skills? Let us look into them. A few of them I have listed down here. The first one is retain chunks of language in short-term memory. So when we are listening to a particular set of information, we will try to retain the important chunks of that particular language in a short memory, or whatever discussion is happening in a short memory, so that we can comprehend and respond to it in the correct manner. We also have the skill of discriminating between distinctive sounds. That is how we are able to identify different words, different sounds and different languages. When we are able to discriminate, that is when we know that we are listening keenly and we would be able to respond better. Listening skill also involves recognizing the stress, rhythm, tone and intonation patterns. Through listening, we can make out what is the speaker's intention, what is the mood of this whole conversation. So trying to understand all of this is what we do when it comes to the overall listening skills. We also recognize various words and we are able to distinguish between words and their boundaries, as in a certain word in which situation it is more appropriate, where the boundary ends, where we shouldn't be using these words. Like in certain informal settings, we can use certain words, but the same words cannot be used in a formal setting. Listening skill will also have certain micro skills of recognizing the vocabulary. We try to detect the key word and guess their meaning in the context. So when a certain discussion is happening, when you are listening to a particular news or even to a story, you try to understand the meaning of various words that are being spoken in the context that is present in front of us. And thus listening skill becomes very strong when we try to focus on this micro skill. Other micro skills include recognizing the grammatical word classes, recognizing the basic syntactic pattern. So when we understand the pattern in which words are arranged to give out the correct meaning, through the listening is how we will comprehend and understand what the basic grammatical structure of a sentence should look like and how you can change it based on the context. So this becomes very important for us to listen keenly, understand and use all of these micro skills in order to enhance our listening skill overall. Coming to the next part, we have the speaking skill. The speaking skill is considered as a productive skill in the oral mode. We talked about listening skill as the receptive. Now the speaking skill is a productive skill. So the speaking skills can also be seen in various situations. The first one being interactive. In this, we are talking and telling or responding to the conversation. It can be on telephone, we can clarify our doubts and we can talk and discuss. So we are listening and then also responding when it comes to the communication process. The next one is partially interactive situation. So what happens here is, this is sometimes when there is a live audience in front of you and you are talking. So the speaking is mostly happening from the speaker's end and there is little or no interruption of the audience. The only thing that the speaker is doing is the speaker is judging based on the non-verbal communication, based on the expressions and certain reactions from the audience. The speaker is getting some feedback and we will adjust our speaking based on that. That becomes a partially interactive situation. The last one is a non-interactive. This is, there is no real-time interaction. For example, watching certain pre-recorded videos or listening to the radio. So there is no scope of interaction. This is just one way of communication and we are speaking and giving out the content. So these are the three situations where we can see and use our speaking skills. Like we discussed in listening, we also have certain micro skills when it comes to speaking. So these micro skills are basically skills which we will learn, and once we develop these micro skills, it will enhance the major, that is the speaking skills. So it is important for us to know how to pronounce various sounds clearly. We should understand the stress, rhythm and intonation patterns of using certain words in certain context. We should also use the correct form of the word. While we are speaking, we should remember the tense, the case, the gender, and we should be able to use the right punctuation in the right manner so that the pause and the intonation is giving out the meaning. A lot of the time, certain pauses can give out different meanings. That is why it is very important for us to know which words we can put together, and when we put together in a correct order with the right punctuation, the meanings will come out perfectly. Another one would be use vocabulary appropriately. Whenever we are speaking, we need to understand which would be the most appropriate word here. You can have more than one word which you can use, but based on the context, you have to choose the most appropriate word that is there. Also, while speaking, we should speak in a coherent manner. The discourse should be coherent and very easy for others to follow. And we should make sure that we are not giving a lot of fillers. We should highlight the main ideas and just give supporting details in a very small, brief manner so that the attention of the listener is also attained throughout the process. Moving on to the next part. Reading skill. The key area here is that the language education can happen, or we can enhance our language by more and more reading. Education is incomplete without the reading ability. In India, we tend to not give so much importance to reading, as we are trying to make sure that the child is able to write or the child is able to deliver it orally. But we need to understand that the more this process of reading, the more comprehension increases, the vocabulary will increase, and thereby all the other sub skills of LSRW will also get enhanced. So, we need to have a strong school and community libraries in order to promote the reading culture in our country. We are missing out the fact that reading should also be like a pleasure activity for our students. So, reading can be classified into various kinds as to how we do it in a classroom and how, with what intention are we doing the reading. So, the first one, silent reading, and the second, a loud reading. So, the silent reading is when you read a text but you are not also speaking simultaneously. So, this is done to comprehend and understand, and then based on this, the teachers can ask certain comprehension questions to check the students' understanding after they have read the text silently. Reading aloud, this is done usually to show the model reading and also to see how the child is able to understand the words and then pronounce it in the right manner. Another one is intensive reading. Before we get into intensive reading, I would also like to mention two other ways of reading. One is skimming and the other one is scanning. So when we do skimming, so when we are presented with a text, we just skim through it quickly in order to see what it is talking about in general and get a quick view of it. So this is done like if I am seeing a particular brochure of a college, or if I am trying to see a travel brochure. So I'll just quickly go through it and understand that, okay, these are the courses that are being offered. This is what the fee structure looks like. This is when the class is starting. Do they have an entrance examination or not? So I just skim through it just to get an overall picture of it. The next one, that is scanning. This is done to specifically pinpoint a specific particular information that is given in the text. So when you scan through a document to point out the important aspects of it, that is called scanning. The next one, that is intensive reading. Intensive reading is usually used more in the academic setup, wherein we go through a text intensively. We try to understand each part of it, we comprehend it, then we process it, and we use also like our critical understanding of the text. The fourth one is extensive reading. Extensive reading is when you read extensively, you keep on reading, and this kind of reading is done actually with the intention of getting a pleasure out of reading. We go through the text slowly in our own time and we read so much that we enjoy the reading process. That is when it is called extensive reading. So why these reading skills are important for us to learn? Why should we have strong reading skills? It is for us to gain knowledge. All this knowledge that is available in the world in the written form, for us to be able to gain it, we need to be able to read it properly. We need to comprehend it well. So this becomes very important. The other one is overcome hurdles caused by illiteracy. A huge chunk of our Indian population is still not able to read well. That is why the new education policy has spoken about and has launched various missions like Nipun Bharat in order to make sure that from the very early years the children are exposed to reading and they develop this particular skill of reading and comprehending the text well. So reading, it helps us to acquire more knowledge from various reference books and the study material available in various languages in various forms. It will also help us to analyze situations because we are living in a society, we get information through a lot of print material. It can be newspapers, it can be magazine, it can be posters in various places. So it becomes very important for us to understand. Also, reading skill, it has a lot of utilization for us to be able to work out or to live our normal life. If we have the reading skills, we can look at the signboards, we can read what is written on the signboards. We can also understand what it is, what is going on, where are we. So it helps us in our day-to-day life also. Reading is also a process which will enhance our critical thinking, which is in turn contributing to our overall development. So the reading skill, it becomes important because when you are reading a particular text, you are comprehending it, and also it is giving you the opportunity of critiquing what you are reading. It also enhances our critical thinking skills. That is why reading skills become very important for us. There are various characteristics of reading skills. It involves complex cognitive skills because you are reading, then you are trying to understand it, you are processing this information, you are keeping it in your memory. So there's a lot that goes on when it comes to the reading skill process. Reading is also selective and it is based on the reader's choice. If the reader is not interested, if I do not want to read, no one else can make me read. So it is a very selective process. I need to choose, the child need to choose to read a particular text. Reading has to be fluent and clear. This is what is one of the aims of the early years. So we are trying to make the learners understand what these words are, how to say it, how to pronounce it. So when we keep on reading, whether it is silent reading or reading aloud, we can clearly and fluently express ourselves later on. Initially by reading, and then later on as we develop the vocabulary and skills, it will contribute to our speaking skills and thereby contributing to our writing skills as well. As and when we are reading, we are also seeing the spellings of the words. So it will contribute for the development of other sub skills are also. Reading should be done in an enjoyable manner with the correct pronunciation and intonation. So the reading, when we are practicing or when we are reading aloud, we should try to do it with the correct pronunciation and intonation so that it is giving out the right meaning. The right way of reading a text is also important to comprehend it to the best of your abilities. So certain examples or where you actually use your reading skills would be while you're reading a text, while you're reading newspapers, while you're reading storybooks, while you're reading various poems. So these are some of the characteristics of reading skills. The next one is the aims of reading skills. Why do we actually read? We read to have fluency in the language. We read so that we can read and later on speak confidently, so that we are able to comprehend the text and gain the knowledge. It will also cultivate a habit of reading, which is very essential for us to develop cognitively. It will also establish a relationship between the spoken words and the printed words. So when we read and when we listen certain things, we will be able to establish a connection here. That is why reading skills become very important. So there are various micro skills when it comes to reading. Like we need to know how to decipher a script, the sounds and symbol relationship. We should be able to recognize the vocabulary. We should be able to pick out the key words and the main ideas given in a particular text. We should also understand the basic syntactic patterns that are there in sentence formation in a particular language so that we are able to use it when it comes to the other skills as well. We should reconstruct and infer based on what we have learned or what we just read. We should try to see in what situations it is applicable, who are the participants in this discussion. We should also be able to distinguish between the main idea and the details when we read a particular text. We should adjust our reading based on the purpose. Like I told you, there are various kinds of reading based on the purpose that we have, like skimming through a text, scanning a text for specific information, reading intensively when you are reading an academic or a research paper, and reading extensively when it is for pleasure or leisure. So this is how it becomes very important for us to have all of these micro skills. We should be able to adjust our reading based on the purpose for which we are reading. So there are various methods of understanding by reading. So when we show something and then we associate a word or sentences based on the picture, this is basically the look and say method. The next one is the language experience method. So we here give a lot of importance to the experience of the child. So we give them a lot of exposure. So while they are going through certain things, they read about it and then they speak about it. That's how we make it stronger and then they understand it better. The next one is the context support method. So in a particular context, there are certain preferences that people have. So for example, some of the boys or girl children, they have a liking towards car. So if you're doing a story about car in that particular context and you ask them to read it, they will be more interested because this is something that they like. That's why it is important for us to do this. There are various errors that can occur when we are talking about the reading. So we can get stuck at many places, which is completely okay. We should be able to seek help or we should be able to ask our teacher how to go ahead about this. A lot of the times, the wrong posture of sitting and reading or keeping the book very close to you can also hinder your experience of reading. Not having the right fluency or not being able to recognize words will also lead to errors while you're reading. And lacking the intonation and the emotions that you need to bring in based on the context and the text that you are reading aloud for everybody else will also hamper your comprehension of the text. And also, a lot of the times, there is very little to no guidance given for reading. That is why it is very important for us as teachers to give children a lot of model reading. When you model the right way of reading, the right pronunciation, the right intonation, and how to take pauses while you're reading, the child will also be able to do the same. So, these are some of the important things when it comes to the reading skill. Moving on to the next part, that is the writing skills. Writing is again a productive skill. Now, this is in the written mode. सो राइटिंग स्किल व्हाट इट डज इज, हम कई बार ये कहते हैं कि जब भी मैं कोई चीज़ को सिर्फ पढ़ती हूँ तो शायद मैं उसे याद ना कर पाऊँ, बट जब मैं उसको पढ़ने के साथ साथ उसमें नोट्स बनाती रहती हूँ, क्विकली कुछ मैंने शॉर्ट पॉइंट्स लिख लिए, तो वो मुझे मदद करता है चीज़ों को अच्छे से याद करने के लिए, क्योंकि हम अपना मोटर को भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं, हमारे जो फिजिकल कोऑर्डिनेशन है वो भी इन्वॉल्व हो रहा है विद द कॉग्निशन एस्पेक्ट. सो रीडिंग स्किल इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट, but writing skill, it will reinforce our oral and reading work. Whatever we have read, we have picked up certain words, certain spellings. So when I am writing it in the right manner, it is reinforcing whatever I have read or heard for that matter. NCF 2005, it spoke about the writing ability. It said that the writing ability that we need to instill in our children should be their creative artistic expression, and it should not just be an official skill that they should be able to write. So a lot of the times, the various kind of examples or situations that we are creating for our learner to actually use writing skill should not be monotonous. It should be creative, and we should leave a lot of open-ended situations for them to enhance their skill as per their creativity and liking. So develop writing holistically with talking, listening, and reading. So we should not do the development of this skill in isolation. We should do it with all the other skill, that is speaking, listening, and reading. The next is, what is the aim of the writing skill? So the writing skill, the aim includes communicating our thoughts and feelings in the written form. We are able to answer questions in the examination. That is why we should be able to put out what are the important points, what is important, and leave out the extra fillers as and when it is required. It also helps us to develop literature, books, and articles. It enhances our creative ability. So when you write something new, you will be able to understand how creative you are. There is no limitation to what you can do with your imagination. So writing skill, one of the aim is that also, to write fluently following the proper grammar rules. So now that we have seen that it is important for us to know the structure of various sentences and how we should use certain forms of various parts of speech in English language, when you are writing it with proper punctuation and everything, it will enhance the fluency. Whoever is reading it will be able to get the idea of what you have written about. It will help us to organize our ideas better, and it will also tell us what are various ways of writing. Like there are like certain things that you can do. There is note taking, note making. So we need to know what is the objective of a particular activity, and that's how it becomes very important. Moving on to the certain micro skills or characteristics in writing. So the writer needs to know the correct spelling. They should know the script of how a particular language is written. They should know the correct form of the words, which tense, which case, and which gender pronouns should we be using. And we should be able to put words together in correct order. We should use vocabulary correctly, use the style appropriate to the genre and audience. We should know the sentence structure, and we should keep the main idea and distinct it from the supporting information and idea, so that we are able to give out the major ideas in a proper manner. We should make the written text coherent. There should be connection between the sequence of things that are being written, and write content according to the mental level of the reader. If we are writing something, we should make sure that the reader of this particular text should also be able to comprehend it well. We cannot write for school children in the same manner that we will give notes to a higher secondary or even college students. So these are some of the micro skills. Coming to one of the important aspects of the writing, that is the handwriting. A good handwriting attracts readers. It should be legible, simple, clean, and well spaced. So what are some of the cautions that you should take while you are writing so that your handwriting is good? You should have a proper posture. You should distance yourself between you and the notebook, and the eyes should be proper. The ability to hold the pen and pencil in the proper way. Use various calligraphy notebooks for practice. So these are some of the things that you can do in order for you to develop your handwriting skills. Moving on to the next part, now we will look at various questions which are related to the LSRW skills. The first question in front of us is, students need to brainstorm ideas, organize, draft, edit and revise their work is a process which reflects. So we discussed all the 4 skills which are important for our language learning and expressing ourselves in the communication process. So the options here are: the first one, listening skills; option 2, speaking skills; option 3, reading skills; and option 4, writing skills. So when you see all the 4 options, we need to go back to the key words that are mentioned in the question. Brainstorm ideas, organize it, you have to draft it, and then edit it, and then again revise it. So in which of these skills will we be doing all of this? So I think you all have guessed it correctly. It is the writing skills. Moving on to the next question. Reading for comprehension can be best achieved through. So the 4 options in front of us are: teaching learners to run a finger or pencil under the line being read, asking the children to read the text aloud, helping learners speak words softly while reading, learners reading silently, and asking comprehension questions. So if you see the question, reading for comprehension, so the key word here is comprehension, and we can see that in only one of the options. So the right answer here would be option 4, that is learners reading silently and asking comprehension question. The next question in front of us is, language skills are best learned. Option 1, only through written test and assignments. Option 2, if they are taught in an integrated manner. Option 3, with the help of challenging and mechanical language drills. And option 4, when they are introduced in isolation, one skill at a time. Here we can try the method of removing certain options here, so that we are left with choices and lesser choices, and makes it easier for us to attempt the question. So as you can see, option 4, it is talking about something very specific. Should we narrow down language learning just to one skill at a time? Will that be the right way of teaching? No. So we will move out the option 4. The first one, we should only do it through written tests and assignments. Are we only talking about writing skills? No. We are talking about all the skills in the language learning. So we will remove this option as well. Now we have two left. One is talking about giving challenging and mechanical language drills, and the other one is talking about teaching the skills in an integrated manner. Every time you come across a question like this, always go for the integrated manner. So, the right answer here would be if they are taught in an integrated manner. These four language skills cannot be taught in isolation, and we cannot expect the learners to do individual assignments for it. We should try to club the skills together so that they are able to do it well, and it gets all of these skills are related to each other. So teaching them in isolation is never the right option. The next question in front of us is, correct speech habits can be developed most effectively through pronunciation practice, vocabulary practice, quizzes and dictations. So now here we are talking about correct speech habits. It can be developed most effectively through which of the following? So, as you can see, we have four options in front of us. The first one, pronunciation and practice. So, this also concerns with the speech habit. The second one is vocabulary practice, learning new words. The next is quizzes and dictation. So, we can easily remove out two options and then we will be left with the correct answer, that is pronunciation practice. Moving on to the next question. When young learners are asked to read a text silently, they should be instructed to stop reading whenever they encounter a difficult word or phrase, to infer the meaning of new words from the context and read with comprehension, to pay special attention to grammar items used in the passage, to read fast even if they do not comprehend the meaning. So again, we will use the elimination method. One of the options which I can clearly tell you, and I know that you all also feel the same, option 4 we can remove immediately. We should never encourage reading without comprehension. So the fourth option is removed. Now we have the first option, to stop reading whenever they encounter a difficulty word or phrase. So what this will do is, if every time we are interrupting when the child is coming across a difficult word and is taking longer than usual to read, we should scaffold them. We should help them so that they can move ahead and read further. If we stop them every time, they will get demotivated and lose interest and may not participate in the same manner again, which will ultimately hamper their learning process. So we will remove the first option as well. Now we are left with two. So we should pay special attention to grammar items in the passage. Here we are talking about the reading skills. In reading, one of the important thing is for us to understand the context and to comprehend whatever new words or whatever is the main idea of the text. So the right answer here would be option 2, to infer the meaning of new words from the context and read with comprehension. The next question is retrieval skills in writing are. When we talk about retrieval skills in writing specifically, we now have to understand that we are retrieving information and then you are using it in writing. So the options in front of us are organizing information while reading or listening. Option 2, note making and note taking. Option 3, diagramming and summarizing. Option 4, abilities to do extensive reference work. So here we need to remove certain options, that is option 4 we can remove and option 1 we can remove because they are talking about the other skill. When we are talking about writing specifically, we now have two options in front of us, note making and note taking, diagramming and summarizing. When we are retrieving some information, the right answer here would be option 3, that is diagramming and summarizing. The next question is, Assessing reading at class 7 can be done most effectively through. So now we are assessing reading. This comes under the pedagogy of language. Okay, so we are now trying to assess the reading abilities of the child. So we can do this in the most effective manner through which of these? So the four options in front of us are writing a 50-word book or text review as a small project, spoken quiz based on the meanings of the words and expressions. Option 3, written test based the characters and events in the story or text. Number 4, an oral interview to find out how much they have read. Now we are trying to assess the reading of the learner. So we will now first remove number 3. We will also remove the spoken quiz because it will test mainly their comprehension but mainly their ability to tell orally. So we will remove option 2. Doing an oral interview will also not fetch us the right intention or the objective that we have here. So the right answer here would be option 1, making them write a small review as an assignment or a project of what they have learned, the text that they have learned. So when they review it, we will be able to understand how much they have comprehended based on their reading, and they are able to tell us through writing as well. The next question in front of us is, in the case of vocabulary use, grammar provides a pathway to learners. 2. Speak in formal situations with greater accuracy and confidence. Retell listening inputs into oral output. Combine lexical items into meaningful and communicative expressions. Number 4, draft formal pieces of writing in higher classes. So when we are talking about grammar specifically, so the grammar provides us a pathway. When we know how to use the vocabulary through the grammatical rules, which are basically how the structural foundation of a language is, it will help us to combine the lexical items into meaningful and communicative expressions. So the right answer here would be the third option. Moving on to the next question. Among the 4 language skills, which pair constitutes the reinforcement skills? Reinforcement skills is the key word here. Reinforcement. You have comprehended and then you're reinforcing, you're revisiting to that particular thing. So which of it here would be the right answer? Let us see. The first option is reading and listening. Option 2, speaking and listening. Option 3, reading and speaking. And option 4, speaking and writing. Here, what we need to do is we can individually see which skills are doing what. In which skill do you actually reinforce? Do you actually revisit? Do you actually think little more about it? So the answer here would be speaking and writing, because when we are speaking, we have already read, before speaking we should listen, we should comprehend, and then when we are speaking we should give out the right meanings in the right manners. And then when it comes to writing, based on your understanding, you're using the correct structure, correct pronunciation, making sure that you are following the grammatical rules. So these are all coming under the reinforcement of the skills. The next question here is, the teacher and students discuss a topic and the former starts the conversation by asking a question. Then the students respond by giving examples and explanations. The speaking assignment here is to grade how well students. So this is an example of how a classroom activity is being planned by the teacher. So the teacher and the students are discussing a topic together. And then the teacher starts to ask questions and the students are giving examples and giving explanation while answering. So this is an activity which is being used for speaking assessment. And now, what is that the teacher is trying to assess by doing this activity? The first option is speak fluently and creatively, process information and respond appropriately, express themselves, respond in an appropriate tone and express themselves fluently and accurately. As you can see here, we need to choose the most appropriate answer here, which is the option 2, process information and respond appropriately. So whatever the discussion has going on, what we have understood from that and what is the learning here, that they should be able to respond properly. Moving on to the next question, one of the sub skills that is assessed for speaking would be, one of the sub skills that is assessed for speaking, understanding and responding in a paragraph to literary works, using appropriate volume, clarity, and gestures in individual or group situations, spelling common, frequently used words correctly, listening actively and responding to others in small and large group. So when we are talking about speaking, what would be certain sub skills? So like we discussed, there are certain micro skills when it comes to speaking. So here the correct answer would be using appropriate volume, clarity, and the gestures in individual or group situations. Moving on, the next question is, skilled reading is it progressive? Is it deliberate? Is it constructive? Is it imaginative? Reading is considered as a very high level task because we don't just read, we are also using our critical thinking abilities when we are reading a particular text. After having comprehended it, we are trying to have our own views on it. So, reading is considered as a constructive method. The next question is, the assessment of students' writing should most importantly focus on. What should we focus on when we are assessing the writing? Assessment of students' writing should focus on keeping to the word limit, using idioms and metaphors, correct spelling and ideas, and expressions and ideas. So when we are talking about writing, we remember that NCF 2005 and also various linguistics have spoken about how writing is seen as a creative expression of what the child knows, what are its imagination like. So the right answer here would be expression and ideas. Coming to the next question, before students start reading a story titled Brave Bittu, the teacher initiates a discussion with them on bravery. What is the teacher trying to achieve through this activity? So, this is like an introductory part of our lesson. Whenever we are going to start a lesson, we are trying to establish the connection between what the children already know. We are trying to build on their previous knowledge. So, in this discussion that we have here, the teacher is first talking about the quality that is bravery. After talking about this particular bravery concept, the teacher will move on into the text, which is actually discussing further and more specifically. So, in the introduction time, the teacher has done this. So, why? What is the objective of the teacher doing this? The four options that we have here is to activate the previous knowledge of students, to activate the intellectual stance of students, to activate enthusiasm in students, and to activate the efferent stance in students. So we have the four options here, and the most appropriate answer, like we discussed, the intention of the engage phase, the intention of the introduction of any lesson is basically to build on the previous knowledge. So the right answer here is to activate the previous knowledge of students, trying to build on the experiences and what they already know before moving on to something more specific and new. The next question that we have here is, scribbling is a stage of speaking, listening, writing, and reading. This is a very simple question. The right answer here is option 3, that is writing. We will scribble before we start writing properly. Or sometimes when we are writing in a hurry, trying to take down notes, we will just scribble it. So that is coming under writing. The next question is, why is storytelling most important in an English language class at primary level? At the primary level, why do we consider as storytelling as one of the most effective ways of teaching of a language? It is useful for developing integrated language skills. It develops moral values among the students. It improves students' vocabulary. It creates fun in the class. As you see, all of these options are seeming correct. But we need to choose the most appropriate answer here, which will encompass of the other options as well as which will give us a comprehensive view of why storytelling becomes important at the primary level. So the right answer here would be it is useful for developing integrated language skills. Next question here is, under which activity do recognizing sounds and deducing meanings from them come? So you are trying to recognize the sound and you're trying to also deduce the meanings of various sounds that you have received. So this happens under which of the skills? Speaking skills, listening skills, reading skills, and writing skills. This is also a very simple and direct question. So the right option here would be listening skills. Which one of the following is not true in relation to the use of children literature? It makes them understand and respect diverse cultures. Their reading proficiency deteriorates and gets worse. It helps in developing learners' imagination. It broadens their mental horizon. Which one of the following is not true about children literature? Why we use children literature in our classroom? From these statements, which one is not true? So it makes them understand and respect diverse culture. We do use the text with that intention. We have that as one of the objectives. Their reading proficiency deteriorates and gets worse. Are we trying to do that? Next option is it helps in developing learners' imagination. Definitely, we want the learners to have a very creative expressions. So, we give them opportunities to imagine scenarios and it will also broaden their mental horizon. So, the right answer here would be their reading proficiency deteriorates and gets worse. This is not the objective of using children literature. The next question is, which one of the following is most important in developing reading skill at primary level? The options in front of us: ability to read phrases correctly, ability to comprehend the text already read, only knowing the correct order of alphabet, and ability to read words correctly. So from the four options that we have in front of us, which is one of the most important in developing reading skills at primary level? So which one is the most important? Which ability are we trying to address when it comes to the primary level? So clearly we should know that the whole intention of reading is basically the ability to comprehend the text already read. So the correct answer here is option 2. Coming to the next question, while reading, a learner needs to. So when we are reading the text or when a child is reading the text, what needs to be done? Guess the contextual meaning of new words to understand the text. Translate the written symbols into corresponding sounds to grasp their meaning. Perceive and decode letters in order to read words. Understand every word to grasp the meaning of the text. When we are reading a particular text, the main thing that we need to remember is the objective is for us to understand the meaning that is being given here and trying to see it in the context of the text that we have in front of us. Thereby, the correct option here is guess the contextual meaning of new words to understand the text. So this was the last question in our today's session. With this, we come to the end of our session. Today we have discussed on the language skills, the LSRW skills. What are some of the micro skills that are involved in all of this, why it is important for us to develop these skills, and how these skills are not read in isolation. We should not try to develop them in isolation. We should try to develop them in an integrated manner. So this particular topic, it becomes important for us in both language 1 and language 2 for both CTET paper 1 and paper 2. Make sure to go through the questions that we have discussed and also the concept. Every year we have either 1 or 2 questions from the pedagogical aspect or from the concept itself. Thus, this topic becomes very important for our CTET preparation. Thank you.